Hello and welcome to TTRPG's Faire. Today, we are raising funds for GLSEN, an organization that works to ensure that LGBTQ students are able to learn and grow in a school environment free from bullying and harassment. I'm reading off of the thing in case you can't tell. We are celebrating Nikki's birthday by supporting this organization because making schools safe for queer youth saves lives. Check the chat for information about donation prizes and incentives and all of that good stuff. The Nightbot command for that is donate FF. You should be able to put that over there and check it out. We are kicking off our charity event weekend with a panel called A New Kind of Power Fantasy. And we have a panel packed with powerhouse role players ready to share tips and tricks for creating characters that you can really connect with. And that being said, we're going to introduce everyone. I'm going to go first because I'm moderating. Hi, I'm Kelsey. My pronouns are she, they, and I am the communications director for the lovely Twitch channel you see us on right now, TTRPG. I will be moderating today's panel on creating powerful characters. So I'm going to be asking the questions and all of that. And I'm going to pass it over to Jay.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Please donate if you can. I'm super excited to be here. My name is Jay. I use they, them pronouns, and I am an illustrator and art director for tabletop games. I'm going to throw it over to CJ.
I was trying to do the hit the spacebar thing. Hi everyone, I'm CJ, and I am a tabletop game designer, and among other things. And so I was just looking at it. I'm gonna pass it over to Christiana.
Thanks, CJ. Hi, everyone. I'm Christiana, or Chris, or Christy now, even. That's fine. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a TTRPG writer and performer, and I'm very excited to be here on my very first panel. Thank you all for coming. And I'll go ahead and pass it over to Cam.
Thank you, Christiana. My name is Cameron. I am my pronouns are he, him. I am a writer, game designer, actor, tabletop role-playing game gremlin, and I'm very excited to be here, a part of this. I'm going to echo Jay and say, please donate. This is a great cause, and Nikki is a wonderful person, so we're rounded out with compliments and donations, so please do it, and please enjoy.
Wonderful. Now that we've met everybody, so here's how this is going to work. We've got some questions in a list already, and we're just going to be kind of chatting around. It's not going to be like super structured. So I'll be asking a question, and then I'll ask someone to start, and then we'll just kind of bounce off each other. Yeah. So let's start with character inspiration right at the very beginning. So this question is, how do you get started with your character creation? And as a secondary and add-on, how do you decide to name them? We'll start with Jay for this one.
Okay, cold calling. Let's go. Don't mind me looking at the question again, because I didn't think you were going to call on me first. So when I get started with character creation, it really depends on the group and the game. Sometimes I will have like a clear idea of the kind of character I want to play for a specific game or genre that the game is going to be. Other times I'm just like, I have no clue. I'm going to wait till session 0 and see if I get any ideas from my fellow players. And most of the time I do wait at least to hear something from the GM. I never come into a game with a full-fledged character like, here's my boy. Insert into game, please. I usually try to get some information about the world or the plot hooks or what's going to be relevant, especially if it's a one-shot. Because it's with one-shots, you kind of have to just take off the ground running and have your character be all set and ready. But I just, yeah, so I tend to wait for session 0 and talk with all the other players, see kind of what we want to do, what tropes we kind of want to explore, etc. And I get a lot of inspiration bouncing off my other players. And for names, that's a really hard question because sometimes, again, I will have a name that fits the vibes right away. Other times, the naming process takes a while for me because not that other people don't, but I care a great deal about what I name my characters. And so sometimes it takes me forever to think of the name, and sometimes the name is what comes last in my character development process. But that's like the basic overview, I guess, for me.
Very nice. Anyone else can just jump in.
Yeah, I want
Super
to.
structured.
Happy to jump in. Jay said something that was waiting to, because this is a very collaborative medium, waiting to meet your other players, whether you're a DM or another player, to figure out how a character can fit in is super important. And for me, I do that, and then I look at, say, all right, what trauma can I put on this character that fits exactly with this story in this group? And because the way that I create a lot of characters or NPCs, where I start is, I think of a movie that did this well was, I think it was Inside Out, where it had the emotions in the brain, where they focused on core memories, and we all have those in one way or another. We think back to those times where the first time you saw a certain movie or first time you saw something, and that really can start to help inform why the character made choices and got to where they were. And of course, it gets more complicated the more you dive into it. But it really just, it makes a living being a lot of the time, because no one is 100% happy. Everyone has that little chink in their armor that really makes them human. And names, I usually go with names that, this is hard, but have some history with the character. Like, I'm playing a character right now named Cormac McFarland. He's an Irish immigrant, and both of those names are very Irish. McFarland is the middle name of one of my older brothers, and we're a mishmash of a bunch of different things, but that's an Irish name. So I was just like, oh yeah, I'll cherry pick that. And I go into a lot of like naming conventions for people, of like old Gaelic naming conventions, old German naming conventions, and say, okay, well, why did someone get named this? And then go from there.
Yeah, jumping off of that too, I keep it simple for myself. I have a list on my phone, like in my notes app, and anytime, because I consume a lot of media, podcasts, TV shows, movies, and there's so many things that I'm interested in and things that I like to watch, and I'll put on in the background because I work from home. And so I just constantly have like fantastical things playing, and I'll write down names or locations or things that I like. Yeah, yeah, honestly, here it is. Oh, it just goes on and on and on. It's very, very long at this point. And I'm playing a character right now whose last name I got from a podcast that I listened to, and it's Dralafa, and it means the lost ones or the forgotten ones. And so I just wrote that down because I was like, that's really cool, and I like that concept. And now my character is a person who was lost from their family and was picked up by an organization and trained as a rogue. So they give every kid the last name Dralafa. So that's just something that I like to do, that I think has been super helpful, because once you get into a group setting and you decide, like everyone's saying, you kind of wait to see in a session 0 what's going on. You get to choose from like different motifs that I've already had saved, because like with my ADHD brain, I will not remember at that moment, and I might marry something in session 0 and then regret it. But now I can avoid that because I just have this list constantly nearby.
Yeah, and jumping off of that, I think whenever I make characters, it really is system dependent, first and foremost. But it always comes down to like, what playbooks or classes do I think are cool, and what's like, basically what does that class or playbook do, and then I just kind of work backwards, because I one of my favorite characters in a game that like hasn't streamed yet is like a cleric. What is it? Like a forge cleric. So they like make weapons. And I said, you know what? I think it's really cool if they're just going to be really intense about making weapons. Like that's their thing. So they're going to lean into it. So they're just this, they end up, and because I say, okay, well, if this is their thing, like how does that manifest in their personality? So they're very intense, very driven, just like bold. And then I kind of like sometimes I use that to pick their name, but mostly I just pick names that I like. I'm like, you know what, this name's cool. Like I love this. Your name's Amethyst because you're purple. Like
Yeah.
I'm very simple.
That's yeah. And another thing I love about the list is that I can scroll through and see every recent character of mine and see all the other names that they almost were. And then when I make a new character, I can look at all my my not discarded, but my unused names and see if any of the old names I was considering would fit a new character. And so I do that a lot too, and it just keeps a record of everything that I was considering so that I don't forget my cool ideas. And I agree with
Yeah.
CJ. Like I always look for what's cool. I want to play cool character all the time.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, CJ. There's lots of different ways to approach building a character, right? There's like the starting with the system and working your way out, like you said, and then there's also starting with vibes, working your way in, and there's like different processes you can go at, and it could be really interesting to like figure out which way you usually approach it first and then try to do it the other way and see what happens. That could make a really interesting character. It could make a character that you might not have thought of otherwise. And I that kind of thing really interests me because I come from a more like creative writing kind of background as opposed to like theater performance kinds of things. So I really like thinking about the different ways to approach like writing backstories and where the information comes from and all that kind of stuff. So let's move on to another question. We're gonna go with, here's a good one. What makes a character challenging to play? Something that makes it maybe more difficult to RP for you, or just what makes a character challenging to play? And let's start with CJ on this one.
Yeah. This was this was a challenging question. That's so funny. But I feel like I always no, because I feel like that would be a lie. I think something that I get in my head about a lot is how similar, like am I just like not recycling, but like is this character one-dimensional? Like am I showing enough of like what I want this character to be? A lot of it's in my own head, and often by the end of a game or like after that, I find myself like way more satisfied than I began. But like over longer periods of time, I tend to like not struggle, but get on myself about like, oh, this character isn't like, I'm just showing them as this angry person or very intense, or maybe they're not talking enough. Sometimes I'm a little afraid to say something and like maybe solidify that. But I find that if I just keep playing, like if I get through it, if I interact more with other characters, then that mitigates and that kind of goes past that. And my characters become more than the one thing I've shown them to be as I like as I play the game, like as I interact.
I think the interaction part there is really important for me because my challenging thing, I play and write a lot of rough around the edges characters, but playing characters and making characters that are purposely antagonistic is in this sort of setting is almost impossible for me. Just characters that are just like immediately out of the bat, like I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to do anything, because it stifles so much of that development of the character, because that communication, once you keep talking to someone in character, it's what makes it grow. It's what makes a good story. So for me, that's the most kind of challenging character. But at the same time, there's a lot of media out there that's really goddamn good that focuses on these characters that are really antagonistic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing a kind of antagonistic character right now, and she's my favorite player character that I've ever played. Playing that game with Jay and with Nikki, Avatar, and she, like, straight out the bat was not easy for me, but she's become my favorite. So to answer the question, what makes it challenging for me is that this character is kind of the opposite of who I am. This is me. Like, this is my persona. This is who I like to be and how I am naturally around people, whether I know you or not. But Satya is a bitch. Like, she threatens you no matter your age, your gender, who you are. If you mess with her, you're gonna get the horns.
These hands are rated E for everyone.
Yeah, and it's like I am not like that. I'm a talk it out, and if we can't talk it out, then walk away type person. Whereas she is throw a knife, ask questions later. And so when you're playing someone who is not like you, it's important for me to then have a really elaborate backstory, so I understand why she is the way that she is, because then it would be really easy for me to fall back into who Christiana is and be just too nice to people or too trusting. So yeah, when you're playing someone who is very different from who you are, that makes it very challenging, I think.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I feel like so the typical character that I play tends to be how do I put this? A girl boss. Um and that's sort of yeah, that persona is very different, I think, from me. One of my more recent player character examples was my vampire character that I played in Urban Shadows Second Edition over on Friends Who Roll Dice. The character's name was Talise, and they they were really fun to play, but they were also very challenging to play because Talise is someone who is incredibly smart, very driven, and plays the game of politics in this city where politics is so important. And political intrigue is one of my favorite genres to play, but I still struggle with it because I myself am generally a very trusting person and someone who shares openly of myself to people. And playing characters who know when to hold back, what information to give, and how to play the game is really difficult. I still had a lot of fun. I think I did a good job on that game because, I don't know, it was so much fun. And that whole game was very very good. But I also think there are certain kinds of personality types that I do better playing, even though they're not mine. I have never played a very like a very super flirty character or like a super like antagonistic, rough around the edges kind of character. Those are two tropes that like I haven't been able to play yet that I want to try. But the reason I haven't played them yet is because I do think they'll be challenging for me, and I don't want to. I think there's the little part of my brain that doesn't want to, do badly or like role play bad or, be bad at playing a character. So I fall back on my fail safes that I play often. And even that's a challenge, like taking a very similar character trope and mixing it up each time so I get a different experience playing each character despite me, liking similar tropes. But yeah.
Yeah, I totally relate to what you said about like not often playing like really flirty characters because I am the type of person like in real life my favorite activity is minding my own business. Okay, like I'm not I don't really like I want to know things, right? But I'm not gonna I'm just gonna stay out of it. I'm gonna stay out of it. That's just who I am. But like I really want to play characters who are nosy and annoying and really flirty characters too. But because that's so foreign to me, it's like I don't really know how to do that. I don't really have any experience. But one thing I discovered while I was running The Beaten and the Damned on this channel a couple months ago is that like a really, really fun way and a really good way to like start that out is to like microdose those character types by like running them as an NPC in the game for your other characters. So you like play that character for a couple minutes and like get the feel of it, and then like move on to something else. But yeah, so we've been hinting a lot about backstories, kinds of things, and like how that gets built and how it influences your character and whether or not it makes the character more challenging, if it's helpful. So let's talk about shared backstories. And do you enjoy having shared backstories, and what about it makes them enjoyable? I personally love them. I'm in a home game right now where me and one of the other players did a shared backstory, and it is so much fun. We send each other memes constantly, and it is absolutely fantastic. So we're going to start this one off with Christiana. What do you think?
Great. Yeah. For me, it depends on the character that I'm playing, but 90% of the time, yes. I love collaborating with other players and the DM or GM at the table and having a shared backstory. Again, that same game, Jay and I and a third character have a shared backstory. And before the game, like months prior to the game even starting, we have AUs, we have a whole group chat, we send each other messages. We're also like in a polycule type situation. So that we had all these documents planned out. Very gay. It's very gay. Like literal documents of like, how are our dynamics here? Like, what are we doing? What is this? And one that's great for safety, because especially if you're exploring romance, I think it's a great way to like talk about that beforehand. What lines are you willing or not to cross? Or not lines crossing, but what are you willing to do? And I think what makes them really enjoyable is the opportunity for role play at the table. Your characters can just like have little inside jokes, or you then have an opportunity or a reason why your character would do something, because I think sometimes that's a little hard to do in the middle of like role playing or improvising in a game. Is like, but what choice would my character make? But if your best friend is going off on this adventure or like splitting the party, yeah, you would go with them. That's the reason why. So just like little things like that, I think make it really, really fun.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like I absolutely refuse to play in games where everybody is totally fine with doing that you meet in a tavern for the first time and that's your first episode. Because like nobody knows each other, nobody trusts each other, it's not interesting, there's no spice. Like give me the spice. Like I want there to be complications in all the relationships. Like I'd almost rather like characters have secret and like all these threads, like connecting threads. That's why I love like some PBTA games make you ask questions of different characters and make character connections before the thing, because like especially if you're putting on a performance for other people with streaming versus like a home game where it's just you and your friends. Like I personally think it's just that much more interesting if there's shared backstories and all of those pre-made connections, because it just feels like you're being thrown into a story where there's more things that have already been decided versus the audience and the players and the GM are all learning about each other in real time, and that's just slow and boring and like like and like people can disagree with me, but that's where I stand, because I love plotting with the GM and plotting with my other players and like coming up with like all these complications to our relationships and whatnot. Like it's so good.
Yeah, I really like that point, because that it helps like get into the action quicker. If there's already complications, you already feel like you're in the story like the second that it starts. The term that I remember from like my creative writing classes is in media res. It's like the best way to start at the beginning of a fiction piece or something similar, like start in the middle of the action, and it's easier to hook the audience with that. So that's a really good point. I like that.
Yeah, I've only done one shared backstory in my character creation history. A lot of it has just on my own been like I'm plodding along, like, okay, this is my character, this is where I'm going. But from the DM side, it's always creating character, like combined backstories and working with players, because when you're creating NPCs, you're just creating characters, but for the purpose of character interaction. So if a player says, oh, I want like a long lost brother that I have this like huge relationship with, it's just like, okay, let's get to work, let's figure out that relationship and then in between. And it really comes into that what Jay was saying and what Christiana was saying of just like that work that gets put in to create those connections. And there's something to be said about the meet in the tavern for certain groups, but I think for popular APs, the one that stands out, widely popular APs, the one that stands out to me is the beginning of season 2 of Critical Role. Each of the characters had connections to each other, so they came in pairs. So there was still that, okay, we're going to figure each other out and learn about each other, but there was that foundation of the connections already in the party, and it created that sense of budding camaraderie that I think is really important.
Yeah, it is one of my favorite things to know that you like technically have a relationship with another player, but like that first moment of like, how are we going to display this? Like, what are you going to say to me that like insinuates some like random thing that we were like at a party or something and we know each other, or like I think, or even how is it like, I think at one point, one of the funniest moments that I had was when like I was like talking to my in-character cousin, and my cousin was like, yo, let me introduce you to someone. And they brought me over to like the other player character who was like my orientation leader. And we were like, we literally know each other. And we just like, we like skip over the, like, we're not doing this. Like, let's get to partying. Like,
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Jay.
I was just going to say, one of my favorite shared backstories that I've done recently is on the Doctor Who game that I play on. All of the companions were freshman year roommates in undergrad, and that's how we knew each other. And that dynamic has been so fun to play with, because it's kind of like we grew apart after school. We're like graduating or whatever, because like we all went to medical school. That's the other thing. We're on Doctor Who and we're all playing doctors. It's great. But like however long medical school takes, like 15 years total or whatever, like it's been that amount of time. We haven't seen each other in a while. So it's still like we haven't seen each other in a while. You're like an entirely new person now, but we knew everything about each other when we were 18 and my character was 26 going back to school. But that's not the point of this, but like we knew each other so well back then, and here we are coming back and reconnecting, and it's like how it was before, but also so very different. And it's been very fun playing with that dynamic, because I've never done that before in a game, and it's so fun.
I love the sound of that, because that bridge of like getting, even if characters have those connected backstories when we first get introduced to them, there's still that hill of viewers being introduced to them. But that reintroduction, like relearning someone, that's really cool. I like that a lot.
It is. I'm on a podcast that's actually recording later tonight, and our first episode was when we were children and we're Girl Scouts. And then the second episode jumps to 16 years later and we're adults, and we haven't really like kept up. 2 of them have kept up with each other, but the rest of us haven't. So then the rest of the podcast, and it's horror theme, like something bad happened when we were kids, and now it's starting to happen again, and we have to come together to try and figure it out. And my favorite part is usually horror, if that's included in a game, because that's what I love. But in this one, it's just figuring each other out again. Like, who were you when you were a kid? We work so hard together to create those characters, and then independently to create the adult versions of ourselves. And it is so fun figuring everyone out again. Like, oh, you like to do that as a kid. Of course you became a bartender, or like, of course you became an architect. It's like you feel like you know these people, even though you just play a silly little game with them.
Yeah, that's a really fun way to like, it's a really good vehicle to show that character development too, because if you have like a character that knows your character from a long time ago, that serves as a really solid like point A for your character growth. And then we see who you are now and how you react to things now, and that's your point B, and it gives the audience a really clear way of seeing those things and what the differences are, because you have that other reference point that's also playing in the game. Does anybody have any other thoughts on that before we go to one more question? Going once? Okay, so let's do a very fun question for our last question. This one is, what makes a character fun to play? So we already talked about challenging, but we're gonna talk about the fun stuff. So like, what's your favorite thing about a character to play? What makes a character fun for you? Let's start with Cameron.
I love I'm a little bit of an emotional sadist when it comes to playing my characters. I love like twisting knives in the other players and being like, hey, I'm gonna do this thing that I know is gonna make you feel sad. Without prompting the GM, I started talking to my dead son in the last game. My character just sees him and has conversations with him, and it gets very weepy. But I don't know. That's why I like movies and stuff like that. It's that character. It's like, what's wrong with my little fucked up little people that I see on my little television screen that I like to go and watch and play, and I get to be those little people. But it really, for me, that fun comes because it presents an emotional challenge for the group or between two different characters to overcome. Because what else do we do in relationships in real life than work together to overcome things and have a good time?
I think it's so funny that you said that because I'm the same exact way. I love it when my characters are just like, anybody who's running a game for me, put me through hell, please.
Yes.
Like in that home game I mentioned previously, like our GM was like, they messaged us and was like, hey, let me know what you think might be a cool magical item for your character, and we're gonna like add that into the game. And I was immediately like, okay, here's this thing that's a really cool magical item and it helps a little bit, but like also has like these 4 drawbacks. And they messaged back and they were like, you don't have to like make it a cost or anything. And I'm like, okay, how about we make it harder? Like, how about we make it worse for me? And it's just so much fun to have those kinds of like limitations and see how that pushes the character to do other things.
Yeah, my favorite thing is when all the characters' personalities are so different, but the group meshes together. Like when you get a good group that can play off each other so well, can give and take space like the ebbing flow of the ocean. I don't know why I'm getting so poetic now, but like when you get a really good group that can just do that, and everyone's characters have such distinct personality traits, and like you don't even have to make a super intricate backstory. Like I know I am the trope of like the player that brings like a 10-page backstory or whatever. Like that's just me. I love doing that because that helps me inform how I'm going to play my own character and helps me inform my character's choices, as we were all talking about earlier. But like, you don't even need that. You just need like 3 interesting things about your character, be it like tics or like verbal things, like just 3 things that make your character unique. That's all you need. And then you just play into that. And you can develop your character backstory later if that's not something you're super interested in. But like when you get such distinct characters all in the same room, all interacting with each other, you get some really good, very powerful, you can get like powerful moments, serious moments, very funny moments, from just making characters that have like everyone's got like a little quirk to them, you know? And I think that is what makes playing certain characters fun for me, is the group. Because I do think a group will make or break your game. Because you can have the best character in the world, but if your fellow players like aren't a good match for each other, it makes the game a lot harder, I think. And I think that's that. And then also for my own background as a GM, I've noticed I play a lot of characters that do a lot of the talking, because I know on the player side, having been on the GM side, the GM is dangling plot hooks in front of us, and we want to follow that. Especially if you're on a stream, you're performing for people, you're on a tight time frame. You can't dilly dally and do nothing, because that's not fun to watch. So when there's the aspect of performing in front of it, like I feel like playing the very like front-facing character who talks a lot kind of is helpful for the performance and for the game, because I can kind of pick up on what the GM is dropping in front of me, pick up those breadcrumbs and follow them, because we don't have all day, especially again for one shots. Recently I've been playing other characters who aren't good at talking. I saw my castmate from Visions of Golden here, and in that game, I play a very, very socially awkward character, and that's been a challenge for me, but also just so much fun because I'm letting other people talk, and my character is just there, like chronic just some guy disease. But it's yes, we love Yanni. Yanni is so awkward. I love them, but I think that's what makes characters fun for me, is the groups you get to play with and just developing characters together and just telling a really good story. At the end of the day, that's what I'm here for, is telling a fun story with your friends where you get to play a character who is not you, who is hopefully cooler than you, as we talked about before. Like, I always aim to play someone that is me but cooler, and that's where I'll leave that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Oh
CJ.
no, go ahead. You can go.
No, I was just gonna, that's exactly the point that I was gonna make, Jay, that what makes it fun for me is when my character is just me, but better. Like a little spicy things on top, a little sprinkle here or there, and like I really like that point, because I do that too, especially because I've been playing in a lot of one shots or like 3 shots lately, and you just don't have the time to fully go into that backstory, and you don't. Sometimes it's just not worth it because it's only for 3 episodes or 1. So I like to focus on like 3 to 5 things. One being like, what do I look like? Because the physical element of a player character is so important to me, with how I interact with the other people in the group, with how I interact with the world. And then like, what's something that would make them angry, and what's something that would make them happy, who's someone they love, who's someone who they hate, things like that. Just like fill out those quick 5 questions, and boom, you have a character that's dynamic and interesting to listen to and to watch. Go ahead, CJ.
I didn't forget, but I'm just gonna bounce off you. Hilariously enough, I think, well, no, the thing that makes all of my characters really fun for me is when I can like pinpoint what part of me is inside of this character, so I can hurt myself.
Yes. Yes.
Because I'm like sitting here thinking of the last 2 characters I've played that are like relatively different from each other. I have like an intense one that like is literally so lost, is is a transfer student. So they showed up to the plot and they're like, I don't know it. You all know each other. I don't know you, and you're kind of assholes. But like
What? Student?
Transfer student.
Oh, transfer. I heard tarantula.
Tarantula student.
I was like, oh, that's specific.
Now I can
Is that
see
like a class
give the
or?
character a hard time adjusting.
I'm so sorry. I had to
It's like
clarify.
It's like an alternate Spider-Man. It's not Peter
I
Parker.
am the
It's
human
tarantula
spider.
transfer student.
Let me write that down. And I think the fun part about that character in particular, because like they're like way less talkative than what I like to do, is like I was a transfer student, so I'm like, I can do this. Like this is gonna be easy. And they're like really. I think there's like a common thread that I play characters that are like kind of not even wise, but like aren't just going to jump into something. But sometimes that ends up either like really meshing with like a group of people that knows what the like characters, not like my players, like a bunch of other PCs that are like, we're going to do this thing. And they're like, hey, what if we don't? Like, I have a lot of self-preservation and I don't want to do this, versus like, or like a character that's just like none of you are talking to each other, and that's a problem for me, so I'm gonna talk to you, which ends up like pushing that dynamic of like what's going on, like give me your backstory, because like it literally might kill us if you don't, like. And it ends up, even if I'm playing the ones that either like a little similar, I find that like the the setting or the party will change the dynamic or just how fun that is, and at what point can I hurt myself, because that same transfer student ends up like calling home at the end of this really fucked up thing that happens, and they can't turn to anyone, so I just get to like call my in-game parent and be like, this is so hard. I don't like, I just need a break. I want to cry to you in this moment because I can't turn to these people because I think they all hate me because I'm new here. And that was brutal. And I love that part.
That last thing you said, one of my favorite things is like every character has a past coming to a game, but they have an ultimate goal in the story of the game. I'm just like, what are they trying to do? And what's stopping them from getting that done right now? Whether that's an emotional thing or a physical thing, that transfer student not able to talk to people because he's afraid, that fear, I love that shit. Just have that, like, that part in a character that is just like, no, I can't talk to this person because it's shameful to me, or I feel guilty about something else, or anything like that. Fucking no, I eat that up. It's so good.
Yeah, and as a kind of like closing thought, I noticed a lot of you have said things about like how your character specifically interacts with the group as a whole, and I'm just remembering like as a GM too, that's one of my favorite things about being like playing as a GM is like finding all of those little bits and pieces of how the characters interact with each other and like what roles they play on the team and the goal that they're trying to accomplish. I am the really annoying GM, and by annoying I mean obviously fantastic, that I will message all of my players individually like ridiculous amounts of questions, like out of pocket questions, like, hey, just for example, what would your character do if, or like, remind me again what your mom's house looks like. And I just love pulling all of those little bits and pieces together and giving, like, kind of nudging them all in a direction if I know that there's somewhere that they want to go, and like being that little extra piece of help that like pushes their character so they don't have to like just fight to like RP their character on their own, you know? But yeah, does anybody have any final closing thoughts or advice on building powerful characters before we do our outros? Yeah.
I have one last thought. Because I was thinking about the name of this panel, which is a new kind of power fantasy, and I just like, I think I'm pretty upfront about this, but like I feel like I'm different from a lot of people, especially hearing you all talk too, with like wanting your GM to hurt you. Because like I feel like for me, I get really bad bleed after games, and so if I give the GM too many knives, I am afraid personally of actually getting hurt myself, especially because a lot of my characters do have aspects of myself in them. Be it, you know, stuff like identity and feeling like you belong somewhere, feeling disconnected from your culture, like all of these things that I kind of weave into my characters across any game that I play in. And so for me, I find a lot of power in playing characters that are me but cooler. Like I joked about that earlier, but I do find a lot of power in that because in games where the narrative is getting to punch up at oppression and like fighting back against God or whatever, like all of those themes are things that I really love getting to play a character who is me, but cooler, and where I feel like I can actually make a difference and do things that me, IRL, is probably too scared to do because, you know, it is a story at the end of the day, right? It's not real. And so, in that sense, like, a lot of the characters I play are power fantasies for me in one way or another. And I think that's like the last thing I wanted to say, just to like bring at least all of my thoughts all back around, because I love drama as much as the next person, but it's something that I really want a hand in writing. And I think creating characters with really interesting backstories can give your fellow players and your GM all the tools to play off each other and make that drama happen, because I don't like drama for shock value, right? Like, I don't want to be like, let's see how brutal we can get just to be brutal. Like, I love games that just tug at you at the right way. And all of the stuff that we've been talking about today with backstory, shared backstories, playing off each other, being able to read each other at the table, especially when you're performing, I think all contributes to being able to feel powerful at the table.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think it's really important we didn't have a lot of time to get to it today, but one of the most important things about playing powerful character with a powerful backstory is making sure that you as a player have a way to come down from that at the end of the day and like step back into your real life, which is something that I, am still trying to find a good way to do, but that's individual to everyone.
Post-game bleed is rough.
Oh yeah. I've had that from gaming, from acting, from everything. But I think to what you were saying, Jay, is those conversations, those shared backstories, conversations with a DM, and fucking safety tools. Everybody, please use them fucking safety tools. In a home game, I play a little bundle of trauma that hides it with humor. I don't do that normally. That's not how I handle it. But every time I play that character, I'm gone for 24 hours. So absolutely, all of these things, everything that I've been saying about like, yeah, I'm an emotional sadist and everything, all of it is in service of the story, because that's ultimately what we're all here to do with this power fantasy, is tell important stories together that impact us in one way or another. Turning twisted knives in each other for emotional stuff, that's maybe part of the journey. It doesn't always have to be. And I think that's where it comes to in creating powerful characters, is you get to make the character that you want. And it depends on game to game, story to story, whether you're a player, GM, or if you're writing a book or whatever you're doing. Ultimately, the power is in your hands to create these powerful characters, and whatever you feel is in that wheelhouse is where you should go. Chase the dragon, do whatever you need to create that well-rounded person, humanoid that you're going to play. Because at the end of the day, you're beholden to yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a really good closing point, good wrap-up point. We're going to get started on our outros, and we're going to go, for sake of the panel, we're going to go in backwards order from what we did the intros, just so you know where you are. And then I'm going to go last at the end, and I have a little more announcement type things about the channel. But we are going to start with Cameron. Tell us who you are, where we can find you, what you do on the internet, etc.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Cameron. You can find me on Twitter at worldsmith_cam. I'm a writer, tabletop game designer, actual play performer, actor, activist, off screen. You can go to my Twitter, follow me, what I'm doing, the actual plays I'm in. I'm in 2 right now. Scheduling's a little weird. But this coming Wednesday, I'm in the Kinesis TTRPG with Honey and Dice. She made the system. It's absolutely, truly, I'm gonna plug Honey right now. Forget about me. The most beautiful tabletop role-playing game I've ever seen or played. She wrote it. I've never seen something tie mechanics to lore continuously together. It's absolutely beautiful. I was stunned, and I'm honored to be in it. But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter and follow all my weird life shit that I post about. So yeah.
Wonderful. All right, let's go to Christiana.
Hi everyone, I'm Christiana. You can find me on Twitter at Carpe Christi. I am a TTRPG writer, actual play performer, and an advocate for racial equity and also human rights, because even though we're all humans, we have to fucking try to get rights all the time. You can see me here on this channel 2 Saturdays a month, playing Avatar: The Last Airbender Reclamations with Jay and also Nikki and a couple of other friends who I see are in the chat, and it's so nice to see you here. I also stream on Tuesday nights on Girls Run These Worlds. We're playing Harsh Realms, which is a kids on bike. We're using the kids on bike system. It is creepy. It is spooky. It is fucking mind blowing. Like, Riley is our GM, and shout out to her too. She also runs our Avatar game, and the things that go on in her mind, she is that DM who will take your backstory and twist it to hurt you, but in a nice way, not in a way that makes you feel bad afterwards, but like in a way that's like, I wouldn't have even thought about that. So if you like watching that kind of stuff, we'd love to have you there and hope to see you. Go ahead, CJ.
Oh, it is I. Hi everyone, I'm CJ. They, them, also known as Scholastic Dragon on the internet. That's Scholastic like the book Faire, dragon like the mythical creature, but drop the O in dragon. If you don't know what the Scholastic book Faire is, I can't help you. That's it is what it is. I write games, tabletop role-playing games. I've got like 9 of them up on my itch. You can literally go find me. I am Scholastic Dragon on Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube. The YouTube doesn't have a whole lot up to it. Don't go there. But if you like what I do and think I'm cool, find me and watch me hurt myself. I also stream on Twitch now. I do World Building Wednesdays and Magic the Gathering Mondays. If you want to see me be a little hater, you can. Jay.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jay. I use they, them. You can find me on the Twitters at Nolawoo and at Noladraws if you'd like to see my art. I am also at Noladraws on literally every other social media. I am a professional illustrator, art director, voice actor, sensitivity reader, and cultural consultant, TTRPG content creator, and actual play stream performer. If you want to see me on the Doctor Who show that I mentioned earlier, where we're all playing doctors, that is Monday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern on Lore Everlasting or twitch.tv/The Lady May, spelt MEA. That's Doctor Who, the Many Hearts Project. We have 2 more episodes coming up, and then that's it. So I've been having so much fun on that one. And then on Tuesdays on that same channel, is Visions of Gold, a 5th edition Call of the Netherdeep game. That's where I'm playing Yanni, or Shaman Yanni is their full name, that character that I mentioned earlier. That's 3 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/The Lady May. I have my calendar open in front of me because there's definitely stuff happening. Okay, so tomorrow on this channel, I'm being interviewed with Katie for the Sunday table. I am terrible and forget what it's called, but it's the interview show on Sundays. So I will be interviewed on this channel tomorrow at a time at 5 o'clock.
Called TTRPG, the talk show.
Yes, thank you. Yes, that. And then I am going to be at Gen Con next week. I'm on a panel for one-shots. It's the Three Flings and Utopia panel. We're going to be talking about one-shots and what they can do for your game and how to write them and all that fun stuff. So that's super fun. I'm excited. I got one of the participation grants from Gen Con to go, so they gave me money, and that's the only reason I'm able to go. But yes, follow me on Twitter to see all my random stuff, and I've had such a great time here today. Yeah. Kelsey, take it away.
Wonderful. Hi again. I am Kelsey. I am the communications director for this wonderful channel, TTRPG. I am also a writer and a fiber artist and an all-around internet gremlin causing chaos for the masses and a TTRPG enthusiast. So I love to be a player and I love to be a GM. You can find me on Twitter as at crochet_BBY, and you can find me on TikTok and technically here on Twitch too, but I just do things on this channel, not my own channel, as crotchety old woman, but there's like some fun little underscores in there. You should be able to see that in the chat. Most of my TikTok content right now is Percy Jackson related because I have the brain rot real bad. But it's really fun. Yeah, I do. I have like God knows how many Selena Beauregard cosplay TikToks.
Oh my god.
So that's
I would put my Luke costume back on to duet with you. Like, come on. Like, I would do it.
We'll chat. And in terms of the channel, TTRPG, you can follow us on Twitter as at TTRPG_. The next event on our Faire schedule for today is called Wild Frolic. It is a one-shot of a game called Faire Season, and that starts at 4:30 PST / 7:30 EST, which is in about 20 minutes. And 20 minutes is a perfect and wonderful amount of time to go donate to Glisten and to go check out what they're all about and see how you can help. Until next time, happy birthday, Nikki.
Yay! Happy birthday!